Yesterday I put out a video that discussed price discovery and the importance of liquidity for assets that are considered savings. There was a mistake in that video that a couple of my viewers pointed out to me. I will freely admit that there was a mistake made, and for the sake of accuracy, I'd like to make sure that I set the record straight. I'd also like to have a discussion about the importance or lack of importance of this particular mistake, and continue the discussion on the importance of liquidity and price discovery. Before we get to the mistake that I made, let me recap why it's so important that assets that you hold as your savings are both liquid and marketable. Remember, savings are assets that are good for a couple of different purposes. They help you to come up with cash when needed to cover emergencies that will inevitably happen, so that you can easily cover the costs with cash and not have to make uncomfortable choices. It doesn't matter if the emergency is small, such as replacing a hot water heater, or large, such as covering a few months of income after a job loss. Assets that are good for savings are also intended to meet the cash requirements of goals that you set for yourself down the road. You might want to replace your car in 5 years. Maybe you want to send your children to college without having them take out student loans. Regardless of the purpose of your savings, there are some key elements that make some assets better savings vehicles than others. The two primary properties are liquidity and price discovery, and the two go hand in hand. You see, when you hold an asset for which there is a very active market, you will have thousands or even millions of people actively buying and selling items very similar to yours out in the open. So why does this matter to you, the saver? Well, for items that you've set aside in case of emergency, the active market for your asset creates price discovery. It makes it possible for you to very quickly decide a fair price for your item. When you need cash quickly, this can be very helpful. If your item is actively traded, you'll know, with just the click of a mouse, the fair price of your asset. In addition, because there are many transactions for items just like yours, you'll be able to sell very quickly and get the cash when you need it. If you own an actively traded financial asset, you can typically go online and get the sale done within a few minutes. The cash will then be available as soon as the funds clear. Even if you have a bullion gold or silver coin in your house, you can take a quick drive to the local coin shop and have a check in your hand before you leave. Liquidity also ensures that when you need the cash, you'll be able to get an offer that's very close to the fair market price. After all, there will be many people submitting offers for your item, and they will have to outbid each other in order to get it. For long-term savings, having price discovery and liquidity is very important also. Think about it from the standpoint of planning. If you know that you have specific needs down the road, and you know how much they will cost you, isn't it nice to know what the current value of your savings is? If you have some assets earmarked for the purchase of a $25,000 car, for example, in a year's time, and you know for sure that you can sell those assets for the required amount, it can be a great comfort to you. If, when the time comes for you to buy your car, and you find out only then that the market values your asset for half of what you thought they did, it can be very inconvenient. Knowing the value of your assets will tell you whether or not you're on track to meet your goals. Seeing market prices change will also give you a good idea of whether your assets are becoming less or more valuable over time. Finally, having assets that are liquid, in other words, assets that you know that you can quickly sell without taking a loss, will mean that you can wait until close to when you need the money before you sell, instead of selling the item months in advance to make sure that you can get the cash in time. So with all that said, let's talk about the mistake that I made in my video. I talked about this 2-ounce lunar mouse coin shown on the top here, which has been listed for $699 for the past few months. The seller thinks that he or she can sell this coin for $699, but so far has been unsuccessful. Chances are, just like the homeowner who lists their house above what the market wants to pay, this seller will eventually have to drop the ask in order to get people interested. The mistake that I made was to show the listing on the bottom that actually did sell a few months ago. The listing is shown below. This seller was able to sell 3 2-ounce mouse coins for $156.40 each. What I didn't recognize at the time was that these coins were colorized. This makes it an apples to oranges comparison. we can't legitimately compare the two items. And I'll readily admit to this mistake and hope that it didn't cause too much confusion. It was not my intent to say that all 2-ounce mouse coins are worth $156.40. It was only my intent to provide information that would suggest that the $699 being asked by the seller on the top is too high. We don't need the listing shown below to tell us that, and let's discuss this a little bit further. What we know is that the item on the top has been on the market for 2 months and has been relisted several times. We know that it is not sold for $699. This tells us that one of two things is true about the 2-ounce uncolored mouse. One possibility is that the seller is wrong about the value of the coin and will have to reduce his price in order to sell his or her coin for cash. The other possibility is that there just aren't that many people in the market for the 2-ounce lunar mouse. If the former is true, then it highlights the disadvantage created when price discovery is absent. If the latter is true, then it highlights the disadvantage created when liquidity is absent. The point still holds true, despite the fact that the actual sold listing below was for a colored coin. So, how will the holder of the 2-ounce lunar mouse know the market value of his or her coin? Well, absent comparable listings that resulted in actual sales, the seller will have to test the market. He or she will need to gradually drop the price over time until a sale is made. Maybe, just as in real estate, the seller will get a price signal from an interested buyer who will submit a lower bid. It's possible the seller already has a few bids, since the item is a buy it now item, with an option to make an offer. If offers have been made, they were probably disappointing to the seller. Otherwise, those offers would have been accepted already. Or maybe our seller, who thinks that his or her 2-ounce mouse coin is worth $699, will take notice of this listing from a seller in Poland who is asking $230. Is $230 the right price? Is it high? Is it low? Well, there's no way to know until it actually sells and results in a completed transaction. Is the $230 coin competition for the coin listed at $699? It has some scratches, so maybe not. But that's another problem. When you have a high premium coin, the appearance also has a big impact on value. If this coin listed at $230 sells, does that provide useful information to the seller of the $699 coin? Is the information any more useful than the information that came from the sale of colorized coins? Maybe. Maybe not. Now, there's nothing wrong with owning collectibles. Nothing at all. But they are not liquid savings, and are very challenging when it comes to price discovery. For those of you who have most of their net worth in high premium coins, I will leave you with a suggestion. I'm not asking you to prove anything to me or to any other viewer. You only have to prove it to yourself. That's all that matters. My suggestion to you is to put together a catalog of all of your holdings. Ask yourself the question of what each item is worth and how long it will take you to sell each item for what you think it's worth. Now, don't just go do this exercise with your own personal feelings about what these items are worth. Make sure that you have some evidence to back up your belief. Go to the internet and see if you can find completed sales for items that are comparable to yours. If you find completed sales, take a look at the listing history and see how long it took for those sellers to sell their items. And if you find little to no evidence of completed sales, then you should put a big question mark next to your item. It will be an indication to you that you don't really know the market value of the item and won't know for sure how much you'll get for it unless you test the market for yourself. If it takes you more than an hour or two to complete this exercise for your whole collection, or if you have lots of question marks in your spreadsheet at the end, it should serve as a sign of great danger to you. So to close, I would like to apologize for not catching the mistake on the colorized coin in my video that was on the importance of liquidity. It was an error that I'd like to correct now. At the same time, I would like to state that the mistake does absolutely nothing to detract from the central message, which was the importance of liquidity and price discovery for assets that you consider savings. But to make amends for my mistake, I will tell you a joke and hope that you will be able to find it in your heart to accept my peace offering and forgive me for the transgression. Here it is. A man called his stockbroker looking for a good investment. The stockbroker told him about a little-known stock that was flying under the radar because it was too small for the big money guys to be able to take advantage of. But if he acted now, he could get in on the ground floor and make a killing. The stock was only $1 a share. And so the man said, "Great, I want in. Put me down for $10,000. And so the broker arranged for the trade to be made. A week later, the broker called the man back and said to him, "Remember that stock that you bought at $1 per share? It's now worth $2 per share. You've doubled your money. I suggest you buy more." The man was very eager now and said, "Put me down for another $20,000. The broker arranged the trade. A week later, the broker called back with news that the stock had again doubled and suggested that the man invested more. The man was so eager to become rich that he cashed out all of his emergency savings valued at $40,000 to buy more stock. Sure enough, shortly after cashing out his emergency savings, an emergency came up. The man lost his job. He needed to come up with some money, and so he called his broker. He said, "You know that stock that I've been buying? How much is it worth now?" And the broker said, "Well, you've done quite well. The share price is now $8. You own 30,000 shares. That's $240,000. "Great," said the man. "I need the money now. Sell it all." The broker then said back to the man, "Sell it to whom? You're the only person who's been buying."